I'm composing this right now in an arbitrary lodging that I've recently checked in. Maybe the exact opposite thing that I could at any point compose, assuming the most obviously terrible situation is to happen. Assuming that anything happens to me, something like somebody knows. My story goes this way. I went out on the town half a month prior. It was with a young lady from Kindling, and my experience utilizing a dating application. I had recently ended my 3-year relationship with my girlfriend after discovering that she was having an affair, so my friends Tom and Mike encouraged me to give it a shot. Wander the open fields, they said. So I did. I downloaded the application, set up my profile, and started swiping. It was after a couple of swipes when I got my most memorable match. An appealing blonde with dazzling blue eyes named Megan. She was as old as me, and her profile painted a seriously friendly young lady. I began informing her, as getting some information about her subtleties, what she's doing on Kindling, her inclinations, and we appeared to truly started it off. She played with me to some degree, and being the person who just escaped a relationship, I should concede I got pretty energized. So when she proposed that we go out for supper soon thereafter, I quickly expressed yes automatically. We met at a quiet cafe near the suburbs, as she suggested. She said it was close to her house, and since I drove, I thought it would be appropriate to go see her instead. She was at that point finding a seat at a table outside when I came to. At the point when I originally saw her, she seemed to beat her photos. She still had blue eyes and blonde hair, but her complexion looked worn out, like she hadn't slept in days. She looked substantially more slight also, and the temperature around her appeared to drop when I moved toward her. I was beginning to feel uncomfortable, however, not having any desire to be discourteous. I advised myself to proceed the date in any case. Perhaps it was simply me not being utilized to the dating scene sooner or later. Yet that was when things began getting bizarre. She inquired as to whether I was shocked by her looks, to which I quickly denied, despite the fact that it's valid. Attempted to redirect the point away, however she mockingly called me a liar, and afterward continued to cross-examine me of my genuine explanation of utilizing Kindling to meet young ladies. Told her that I needed to know more individuals, to which she expeditiously countered by saying I was lying once more. She hissed at me as she suddenly slammed the table. I assume that's all you guys want to do is get into our pants. We're just objects of your lust, and all you want to do is satisfy your lust. I don't realize it was my eyes pulling pranks on me. Yet briefly I saw her blue eyes going to a shade of red and being truly creep out at this point. I bailed as quick as possible, gave a stupid excuse that they had forgotten to run an errand, and almost ran to my car. Attempted to erase my Kindling profile promptly while I was driving, however, before I might really do that, there was at that point a message from an obscure number in my inbox. I don't have any idea how she made it happen. Perhaps she researched my name on the web and tracked down my number someplace, yet the message was most certainly from her. Figure you can run. The message provoked me. I turned off my telephone naturally, supplicating frantically that it would be only a terrible trick by my pals. At the point when I arrived at home, the main thing that I did was to call Mike utilizing my home telephone. To my alleviation, he got. Asked him right away if Tom and he were to blame for what had happened to me tonight. He denied doing anything and said that he was not that allowed to endeavor something to that effect. It's not entertaining, fella. I beseeched him, to which he demanded that he had no clue about what I was referring to. At the point when I needed to clarify my night for him, he requested that I pause. There's a young lady remaining at the street waving at me, he contributed, and she's wearing this unusual white dress. Fear tingled my skin. Before I could request that he move away or anything, I heard a boisterous accident, similar to the sound of metal hitting something hard, and the line went dead. I had a go at getting back to back. However, they went to phone message. Shudder. I dialed Tom's number. He got and asked me how the date went. At this point, I was terrifying and panicked. I posed him a similar inquiry, whether they're tricking me, and beseeching them to stop it since it was not entertaining. Man, what are you talking about? We didn't. Tom attempted to answer, however, was out of nowhere cut off with the sound of glasses breaking, trailed by an uproarious crash. What's happening? I kept quickly rehashing to the telephone. I could hear a shout behind the scenes, with fighting commotions. I didn't have the foggiest idea how long I was on the telephone. Yet when it was at last gotten back, I froze. In from another spirit regarding me, and they'll meet similar destiny as your companions. It was Megan. I didn't have the foggiest idea what came over me, yet I hurried to gather my sacks and drove off without a reasonable heading quickly from my home. I continued to drop messages to Mike and Tom's telephone, yet they were all undelivered. I faltered about calling the police or companions to look at them, since I wouldn't even play with the possibility of turning on my telephone, scared of what will be sitting tight for me. Perhaps this is each of the a trick. I don't have the foggiest idea. However, everything simply occurred so out of nowhere that my flight reactions just kicked in. I think it would be best for me to gather my thoughts, settle down, and choose my next move first. This isn't the manner by which I imagine my most memorable date to be. There's a beating on my entryway now. I trust it's the room administration bringing my supper up. You'll understand what I mean when I say I was ghosted on Tinder, or at least you'll think you do, but you'll be dead wrong. Unless you've just emerged from whatever rock you've been living under, you won't know what I mean. Very literally. The foundation, for the people who care, is that I've been utilizing the dating application for more than a year at this point, since my companions told me, as courteously as they probably were aware how, that they were weary of paying attention to my forlorn groaning, and I ought to get out there and find somebody and make them groan. I'm informed it's very common, and there's no disgrace connected at such a long time, generally by others who utilize the application. In any event, for over 30s like me, no shame, simply determined demolition of the self-esteem and mounting distress. I'll not exhaust you with my prosperity or scarcity in that department. To say the least, I'm no kindling virgin, being overlooked abruptly in mid-discussion for not a glaringly obvious explanation irritates me not. I'm practically shocked in the event that it doesn't work out. I wouldn't contact finger to console for such trivialities. This was something very unique. Something about virtual entertainment of any sort it's persevering. Facebook isn't stopped by death. I surmise a great many people north of 30 at this point should have a couple of dead faces in their book. For the most part lethargic, however, every so often labeled in an old picture or informed in remembrance. It's a deeply moving memento mori for such a common, shallow platform, in my opinion, like stepping in a puddle on the asphalt and plunging out of nowhere, hopelessly lost, disturbing, chilling as the burial place. It's shockingly hard, in any event, for the nearest family to get them brought down. It should have been obvious that Tinder would have something similar, I suppose. Our internet-based personas don't require us alive. In among that large number of pictures of thin individuals who've since a long time ago developed fat, new faces currently lined and crumpled, full-haired now more than thinning, there will undoubtedly be a couple of photo in the full flush of life, and presently cold and dead. It's straightforward math. How frequently has each client of kindling or blunder or whatever swiped right on a carcass? Furthermore, since their swipes are put away for whatever length of time the program in all actuality does store them, how frequently has that cadaver right swiped back? How frequently have your initial lines fallen, not on hard of hearing ears, but rather on dead ones? Worryingly near necrophilia, right? It deteriorates, much more regrettable, in light of the fact that, simply envision, if the dead write back, what happens? It was the end of a mundane, everyday day. For reasons unknown, despite the fact that I don't appear to at any point get matches when I'm a terrible state of mind, I began to swipe my direction through my everyday remittance on Kindling. I was pretty much daydreamed. The most common way of looking pictures and swiping left or right was occurring without names or even faces enrolling with any piece of my cerebrum. My eyes and thumbs appeared to have connected themselves directly to my charisma, leaving my cerebrum allowed to stay completely upon every one of the terrible choices and squandered open doors that had left me attempting, however fizzling, to get a corporate calculation to attach me with a date. Her image woke up me from my daze without a moment's delay. It was only a tad to a long way from the typical round of ladies pointing their telephones at restroom mirrors, grinning somewhat woodenly up from seats or presenting before view. The foundation was dull, practically shapeless, simply an unclear feeling of some kind of smooth curtains. Her face stood apart palely in the midst of it. Pretty positively, dim hair, fine highlights, and surprising blue eyes, obviously without makeup, yet pale, her demeanor quite odd. More of a pulling back of the lips and showing of the teeth than a smile. Different pictures, as I looked through them, were comparable. A similar dimly covered foundation, the very lamincy that appeared to be not such a great amount to sparkle upon her face as from it. A similar demeanor, assuming that much else, and more articulated. She also seemed familiar, not well known, but familiar, like a stranger's face you pass occasionally in the same place at the same time, and if you ever see them anywhere else, you know them, but have no idea why. Her profile was similarly somewhat off. JDO 3X, who exactly am I waiting for? C2 non-venerous promotion me, self-image venium promotion T. What's more, despite the fact that I was somewhat put troubled, and couldn't comprehend the Latin, she was pretty thus absent a lot of thought. I swiped right. It didn't match straight away. I was going to stop for the night when the warning pinged up, "You have another match, JDO." I can't imagine I wasn't energized. I was attempting to consider anything clever to say, or perhaps to proceed to research. C2 non-venerous promotion me, self-image venium promotion T, when the primary message from her showed up. "Do you recall me?" I racked my cerebrums, yet nothing was revealed. Yet I was certain, on the off chance that I only asked altogether for subtleties, she'd be no more. How did I ever forget? Indeed, if not for the amnesia in any case, my primary care physician says on the off chance that I have memory slips, you're to fill them in. It's essentially your metro obligation. Amnesia, like after getting hit in the head. That is amusing. Assuming that it's you, I'm certain you'd recall. The recreation area, late around evening time. You wouldn't fail to remember a thing like that, regardless of whether somebody thumped your minds right out of your skull. Haha. What's more, it clicked. There had been this young lady I'd walk past practically regularly coming back from work, in the recreation area somewhere near the stream. It had come to the heart of the matter of trading grins, every time. I was attempting to gather the mental fortitude to say something when unexpectedly she vanished. It could have been a shift change or a new job, but I stopped walking that way because I couldn't remember what it was. She was the same girl in her photos, despite the fact that I had completely forgotten about her. She was fine, perhaps thinner and certainly paler. For what reason would she say she was certain to such an extent that I'd recall? We'd just traded grins, and the night after work was not really late around evening time. However, I'd figured out how to simply allow stuff to that way go. Now recall. But I haven't seen you in months. What have you been doing? Keeping myself to myself, I suppose you could say, with the exception of feeding the wildlife in the area, and losing a little weight. That is cool. I love creatures. I like to remain in shape myself. Perhaps we could go for a run at some point. That is the issue, isn't it, nowadays? Remaining in shape. Don't run any longer. I wasn't quickly enough. However, I might want to see you run. I'm not great. We could take a stroll, all things being equal, feed the ducks or squirrels. I'd much rather come to you, because it's lonely and dark here by myself. There was something about the entire discussion I could have done without, however, that was not really new for kindling. There's a bar close to here I like. We could meet there. What I have at the top of the priority list, improving. I'll come to you, except if you might want to come to me. You ought to know the spot. If you do not visit me, I will visit you. What place? Moreover, you are unaware of my residence. Would it be advisable for me to tell you? What's more, that was the last I heard from her. No answer, ghosted. Simply one more exhausted young lady screwing with me. But when I saw her photos, they were unique. Quietly. Perhaps I'm off base, however, I think they've changed. The smooth curtains seem to be a weeds of some sort, and the odd dissemination of the light more like it's submerged, and there's a stain in favor of her head that I'd swear wasn't there previously, and the lips pull endlessly further back from the teeth like a mummified body. And every time I look, she's increasingly close to the camera. Something different returned to me as well. The previous winter, the last time I saw her, 2 young ladies disappeared around here. They were in their 30s, so it didn't cause such a great deal of mix. However, I recollect that the 2 of them had blue eyes and dim hair, as like my significant other before she. It's entertaining that when I took a gander at the old news reports online, I perceived the 2 of them. One was her, the young lady from the recreation area, and different works, or worked behind a bar I used to drink in. It's an odd co-rate that I quit strolling through the recreation area and savoring that bar that very winter. However, my memory around then is somewhat hazy. I was drinking reasonably vigorously in those days. Distress does peculiar things to an individual, very much like responsibility. For instance, alone in your locked and void house, when you hear a squeak on the flooring planks, see a virus light blue eye, similar to a fish upon the section. In the murkiness past the break between the not exactly closed entryway and the casing, or a slender dim figure with dim hair that appears to drift in the air as though still submerged, moving quickly far away from you before you can turn your head. It's simply a stunt of the psyche, and that's it, right? In the same way as other evenings prior, I took a stab at looking on the web for a date. It often closes in catastrophe, or simply not tracking down anybody. The times I, in all actuality, do find somebody who needs to go out, we're only not good for one another. Or then again, we go to her place and nothing occurs. I'll leave miserable, and she'll ridicule me to her companions at her work without a doubt. I've been informed I'm not a terrible person by individuals, and I frequently joke in the event that they're simply visually impaired. Perhaps it's my character. No, it can't be. I tell myself. I open Tinder just before going to bed, and generally swipe right on everyone. I make the decision to fall asleep after I run out. Perhaps I'll have a match in the first part of the day. Despite knowing this, I tell myself that I'm way too optimistic. To my never-ending shock, I had a match. She was close, appeared to be adorable, and had an astonishing character. She goes by the name Paige and is about my age. I sent her a run-of-the-mill hi in trust she would answer. Not the best at conversation starters, so I simply need to regularly begin the discussion. I put down my telephone and begin to prepare for work. After a shower, I check my telephone out. There's nothing that the squinting blue light can't be, so I open my telephone to tackle my problem. It's a message from Paige, which makes my heart skirt a thump. She sends me, "Howdy, sweetie," trailed by a heart emoticon. I relax and message her back with a straightforward, "How's life?" As I finish preparing for work, I put my phone away. I return after around 10 minutes. No message, so I expect she has classes. Eat breakfast before driving to my workplace at the nearby McDonald's. The Wi-Fi is shoddy, so I will not necessarily get notices for things, particularly dating applications, so I will not receive a message from Paige for a couple of hours. I keep telling my friend Trevor about Paige throughout the day, and he just laughs at me. Do you have a date, dude? Have you asked a monkey out at the zoo? He never forgot to make a joke about my social life. I dismiss it and say I will show him an image of Paige later. I finish my day of work and race back home. When I'm in the vicinity of my home, I get a text from Paige. Not a ton, simply need to be finished with inept school, trailed by a scowl-confronted emoticon. I track down it odd, she texts all in lowercase. Yet I wouldn't fret. We have a just a tad after I return home. After we plainly hit it off. Ask her out on the town that approaching Sunday since I'm off from both my positions on that day. I would cherish that, with a kiss face emoticon is what she sends me. I bounce for delight. The following couple of days, Paige is at the forefront of my thoughts. In my rest, on drives to and from work, and particularly during work. I can't stop thinking about how this date could end. Enlighten my companions regarding her. And one pal raises something that never occurred to me. Man, consider the possibility that she's a buddy. He asks while we work in the outbound truck. I require one moment to think and answer to his inquiry. I'll use pepper spray, punch him in the head, and leave. Easy. I say while making a mass of boxes. Certainly, you do that, Thor. He makes fun of me, but I'm thinking about it now. What is Paige is really a Peter. Sunday at last comes, and I'm preparing. I choose to shave off my neckbeard to give the deception that I keep myself looking great. We choose to meet at a bar in the school town she lives in. I advance toward the town as it's around 10 miles from where I reside. A pleasant parking space gets my attention and I advance in. I sit at the bar and let her in on I'm there. She says that she's just outside. Furthermore, what I get isn't what I needed. He was fat, bald, and sweaty. The anime girl below was obscured by the snack crumbs that covered his shirt. His arms seemed as though he was really a Wookiee. The jaw rolls were covered with a gross fix-ridden facial hair growth. He seemed as though all he did was play computer games and watch anime. He was an all-out human catastrophe. However, he was likewise my date. Would you say you are Paige? I ask, hesitating out of both apprehension and repugnance. After stopping for a moment, his mouth opened and a yes came spilling out alongside a long of breath. Search briefly and get to my vehicle. Sufficiently sure, Paige follows. As I'm going to open my entryway, I feel a hit on the rear of my head, and the last thing I see is the ground. I stir to not see anything. In any case, I feel myself moving. Attempt to move my hands, however they're currently tied behind my back. Figure it out as the parts fit together. I have been captured, and I really want to get away. Simply my luck. Actually have my folding knife from McDonald's. It probably been in my pants from Wednesday, and I just neglected to take it out. I'm ready to wriggle my hands to my pocket and get the blade. I make an east errand of disposing of the limitations holding me. I check out the storage compartment for anything. Right now, I see a harmony utilized for simple getaway. Jackpot. I ponder internally and pull the harmony. Ooh, in the storage compartment, and immediately remember the plate so I can distinguish the vehicle to the police. I see we're on the parkway, and going quick. At that time, I need to design a getaway, and quick. The 20 or so items in the trunk might go unnoticed by other vehicles as the vehicle continues to travel down the highway. No big deal. Without any chance to lose, I fold and carry out of the vehicle onto the asphalt. Modest neighborhood can be reached through a small barrier. It tends to be effortlessly moved by me, not by Pudgy. I bolt to the boundary and get a move on to a house. I thump on the entryway, 2 or 3 responses. When I tell them about my situation, they decide to keep me hidden. All of a sudden, Tubby's vehicle goes through the area of trunk actually open. I look through from a window and hold on until he has obviously passed. I venture into my pocket for my telephone, which he took. Figures, the couple is adequately caring to allow me to utilize their telephone, so I can call the police. I get them moving quickly and give them the license plate number. A cruiser gets through the area, following the way Pudgy took. They at long last catch him and carry me to the station to accumulate what he took from me. I get my telephone and my wallet, trusting he didn't charge my Visa. Call the bank and find that no charges had been made in the time Tubby had my wallet. The cop helps me back to the bar so I can get my vehicle and head home. That was the last time I attempted web-based dating, and I'll confront the loneliness realizing I wasn't a few people's sex slave. I love dating applications. Who can fault me? Meeting new intriguing individuals, and a few times, assuming the science is correct, having intercourse. What difference would it make? There's been a thing on the report about individuals disappearing. However, hello. This world is far too vast to be confined to your childhood home with friends. I've seen many folks and young ladies. This year alone, a date like clockwork or thereabouts. Suppose I'm attempting to see as the one, somebody that would make my life in this gigantic city seriously satisfying, really fascinating, somebody to impart the delight to. I think my profile is generally great. The first image, in a white dress, red lipstick, sunglasses, and heels. I'm leaning against a red brick wall. Second picture, a selfie of me laying on the bed, on my stomach. Advantages can see my eyes, however. Camera trims at my nose attempting to be hot and charming. Offer me a reprieve. Third picture is of me from the back, wearing shorts and a tank top, my hair down and in twists. I'm 19, so the consideration I draw in is sufficient. At this point, I've talked to 4 people but haven't met any of them yet. Joe is engaging. Tom is my first choice right now because he is so hot. Furthermore, cunning. Furthermore, amusing. He may be the one. Subsequent choice would be Jessica. She isn't exactly my sort, however, we clicked right away. Tom informed me while I was composing this up. Hello, gorgeous. Woo too. Hex. Hello, you ex, not much. Simply doing some uni work. What might be said about yourself? Asterisk, simply attempting to destroy my headache. Was a wild one final evening. Help me get better, please. Tom, I simply cannot feel sorry for you and your self-inflicted pain. Ought to have been known better, huh? What are you thinking of? So quick version, he asked me out on the town tonight, which I acknowledged. I'm exhausted and have no plans. We consented to get together at Westminster. Better believe it. The bustling occupied Westminster, close to the large Ben. I choose to wear a dress, thick coat, shoes, and bringing my knapsack, going for that easygoing silly look. So I got my train here. I'm a bit early. It's 1836. I have an additional 24 minutes. So I chose to stroll around. I sit down, involving a paper that states something senseless about expansion and murders of youngsters. That is London for ya. I ensure I don't destroy my dress. Haven't been at Westminster throughout recent months. I'm cheerful. It's a particularly bustling spot. Causes everybody to feel more secure when you meet an outsider out in the open. I see Tom with his telephone in his grasp. He's wearing dark pants, a shirt and an unfastened blue shirt. He looks great. Tom continued to look at people, his phone, and my profile picture, without a doubt. I smiled and came closer to him to say hello after we made eye contact. We head across the extension to the arcade room to play a few games and dispose of that ponderousness when you simply meet face to face. I'm apprehensive in light of the fact that he appears to be so awesome. Indeed, even excessively great. Subsequent to spending not many hours there, we choose to take a walk. the walk around, stroll past Westminster Nunnery, go across a street, and afterward turn right. As we chat and laugh, everything is fine. However, as we leave more populated streets behind us, I glanced at him and noticed that he appeared content and calm, excessively quiet. We approach a little park. It is dreary and looks very unfilled. There's a wellspring to my right side that is moderately clearly. I glance back at Tom and he's giving me a scrutinizing look, inquiring as to whether all is well. Asterisk. Tom, I don't think I have an agreeable outlook on this. Could we at any point head off to someplace else, all things considered? Asterisk. Asterisk. Try not to be senseless. Come on. Are you terrified of the dull, dim park? Asterisk. My grin dropped. How dares he mock me? I'm enticed to simply return home, yet in addition need to refute him. Senseless me, to be sure, as I followed him to the recreation area. As we got a piece further, and confidential Tom wasn't being his enchanting self. Rather, he continued to respond suddenly to my inquiries. Then, at that point, he halted in his way. I gazed toward this 6'4" person, confounded. For what reason are we not moving? He gazed directly at me and drove me into a tree, holding my head up, kissing me. I was unable to move. I couldn't sort out some way to get away. He was holding my hands with his. His body was driven into mine, so I was unable to move by any means. I calculated a method for getting away. Asterisk. Tom, I have a sweeping in my rucksack. Let me get it out, and we can settle in. Likewise condoms. Asterisk. He grinned, content with me being into this. Okay, stunning. How about we get to it then? I bowed down to open my rucksack, and Tom is about my butt. Can't put his distant. Asterisk. You were great. Asterisk. Before he could say, what? I cut a huge cut into his mid-region with a hunting blade. When it stalled out in the muscle, I wounded. Tom began shouting, so I curved it again, then tore it, his mouth with blood spilling out, his eyes alarmed. I grinned, just given him some closure by cutting his throat. Then, at that point, tidied up from all the splatter, put on my loose coinage of garments and pressed the grimy ones in my rucksack. I left him there and returned home. Tom was so great, but another that is only a pig. This town is slithering with pigs and asses indeed. There's around 26 less now. The pleasure is all mine. Gracious and Jess just informed me. Think about who's gathering their ideal match tomorrow. I think my kindling date is following me. No doubt about it. I don't have any idea what to do on the grounds that I can't demonstrate it. I can smell him in my home. The foul smell of oil and third-world sewers, blended in with personal stench. My loft has totally stunk for a really long time. I haven't gone in but to get white garments and drop off old ones. Originally saw the smell when I returned from our date. Alone. The smell was weak, scarcely there. Briefly, I felt that it was the miasma of trash rolling in from the open restroom window. The grime from the city clung to my skin as I shut it. Like rest of my life, the date had gone just wrong. Gerald, he was peculiar, except for the fact that Gerald was greasy. No, he was definitely oily. He looked like the pictures. His hair seemed as though it was spread with a smooth, trickling grease, and his skin had a dubious rainbow sheen, similar to oil on water. Sleazy, oozing, and cystic, his voice matched him. I was quickly switched off. I was on Tinder because I had no friends, which is embarrassing. I had recently moved to a medium-estimated modern city in Southeast Asia for my organization's half-year abroad modern connection. My partners were all moderately aged, and I was totally needing for a few under 30 communication. Swiped right on Gerald around 2 weeks prior. A vacant profile, yet bunches of pictures. He appeared to be sufficiently typical, charming in the tall, inclined kind of way. All things considered, I will not reject that having a neighborhood kid take me around made the possibility of a half year in essentially a modern no place fairly more satisfactory. At the point when Gerald stood up, he left a smooth gleam on the seat. I ran off into the Gojek cab that had been waiting for me after dropping my half of the bill and mumbling something about work. I tipped him an additional 20 to stand by. I don't recollect what we discussed during our date. I in all actuality do recollect seeing him through the window of the eatery. His eyes were disgusting, wandering, watching me leave. He messaged me in the taxi, requesting another date. I politely declined, but his responses were less than warm. The odor, it was the smell that caused me to choose to leave. It was as yet faint then, simply a waiting fragrance. However, it made me apprehensive. Basic awkward sensation of something not exactly right. Tossed some garments into my rec center duffel then, at that point, flagged down a taxi to the nearest occasion hotel. That was about a portion of 7 days prior. The texts have been coming in once like clockwork. I overlook them now. The previous evening, I went to my condo to get more garments. The smell splashed the front entryway, spilling into the hall. Smelled it the second my lift opened. It developed further as I moved toward the loft. My polished, rough-rubbed doorknob sparkled with light from scrabbling hands. I didn't have to contact it to realize that it would be slick, that it would be rotten. Dashed back to the hotel's safety and the safety of others. Flood charge be damned. I sat in the anteroom for quite a long time, lounging in the blurring chat of vacationers, the shine of the roof lights, breathing in and of itself. The staff at the desk gave me an odd look, but no one said anything. My legs shivered when I stood up. I was worn out. I staggered. Lobby, lift, corridor, bedroom, bed. I was simply sinking into the sleeping cushion when I saw it. The smell of weak, decaying oil. I scored the fingers of my right hand together. When did they get canvassed in oil? Everything began 14 days prior. I downloaded Kindling following quite a while of my companions and colleagues going wild over pretty much every one of the hot folks they'd met on there. I have forever been against web-based dating. However, they were undeniably persuaded this was something else. You were not looking for love, in contrast to a harmony or match. A great many people were on the application for hookups. I wasn't that sort of lady, yet having as of late cut off an extremely fierce long-term friendship, I figured what in blazes. I set up my profile at lunch with the assistance of my collaborators. Within 5 minutes, notifications informed me that I had a match. Can't help but confess, it felt significantly better to have lots of folks swipe right on you dependent on pictures and a peculiar bio. I could have overdone it. I got a lot of messages, however, simply answered to not exactly half. I before long wound up made up for lost time in the web-based hookup culture that everybody was so obsessed with. That was my most memorable error. That evening, I returned home. I made myself some salmon and a glass of Pinot Grigio. Turned on the lone wolf, however, ended up losing interest quickly. Thus, I got on Kindling. There was a message from this truly hot person named Jack. He was tall, attractive, and seemed to have a great deal going for himself. Decisively, I dove directly into his snare. That was the subsequent error. Throughout the following 14 days, we had moved our discussion from the application into real iMessage. Tremendous achievement for any planned Kindling couple. We talked the entire constantly. As the days went on, the messages got longer and more intense. I realized that it likely would not go anyplace. However, conversing with Jack caused me to feel better. He truly knew precisely exact thing to say and when to say it. I found that I wanted to be right next to him. Obviously, he yearned for me as well. He requested that I go out to supper with him. I concurred. That was the third slip-up. Supper was awesome. We dined at the city's finest steakhouse. When our dinner was done, we were both on our fourth glass of wine. We chose to return a Uber once again to my place. This was something I had never done before, but my friends did it all the time. They guaranteed me it was okay. When I let my guard down, the Uber ride home quickly turned into a sultry foreplay session. This was the lethal slip-up. When we got inside my home, things were hot and weighty. Didn't have opportunity and energy to seek clarification on some things, and I truly didn't want to. We hurled ourselves on my bed, not mindful if or what the neighbors heard. We lacked opportunity and energy to take out any condoms. I wouldn't fret, however. I had anti-conception medication in my arm. I won't get too realistic here, yet the sex was amazing. We enjoyed some time off for water, and went right back to it. At last, we were both broken down. We fell asleep, my head laying on his chest. I got up toward the beginning of today, and that is when things went to poo. Furthermore, by poo, I mean to outright damnation. Jack wasn't in the bed. Like I said previously, I wasn't actually into the entire hookup culture. However, motion pictures and sound judgment had me with the effect that the folks never stay close by to see the sun come up. I looked outside and sufficiently sure his vehicle was no more. I was somewhat mooched out, however I figured he would message me later toward the beginning of the day. In any case, he most likely had something to do. I washed up and spruced up. In order to pick up my car, I called an Uber to take me back to the steakhouse. At that point, it had been right around 2 hours, nevertheless no word from Jack. Reached for my phone to send him a message, but I quickly put it down. I didn't want to be tenacious. Guys despise that. I headed to Starbucks to get my typical morning jolt of energy, and that is when poo got actually mind-blowingly strange. Jack's vehicle was in the parking area. Realized it was his since he has a particular vanity plate. I messaged him. It said hello. No response. I called. It went directly to phone message. Before I could stop myself, I exploded his telephone with messages. Not a single one of them said conveyed. I went on kindling to attempt to message him on there, yet his profile and our messages were all gone. As of now, I resembled what in blazes. Went on his Instagram just to find that it was deactivated. What the hell? I needed to act insane. I truly did. Yet rather I said to hell with it and drove home to entertain myself with chocolate and Pinot Grigio. I strolled over to my kitchen counter to pour my most memorable glass when I saw a note. My heart quickly started to ripple. What in the world might it at some point say? Opened it, and it read, "Dear beautiful girl, I'm sorry you have to find out this way, but I couldn't bring myself to tell you in person. I couldn't bring myself to do so. My genuine name isn't Jack, yet you can't understand what it truly is. Last night's sex was amazing, and I loved it, but you don't know something about me. I have helps. Welcome to my great world. I'm staying here now, uncertain of what in blazes to do. I'm preparing to go to the Critical Consideration Center. Wish me luck." I made the decision to look for love in an effort to find enduring meaning in this fleeting life. And for someone who is as socially awkward as I am, I can't just hope to meet a starry-eyed guy in the middle of the street who turns out to be everything I've ever wanted. Therefore, I installed Tinder on my phone and decided to go the more contemporary route. That's right, you heard that right. Perhaps there is a real connection there. I get it's not quite as awful as individuals describe it. I started swiping after creating a profile and writing a lengthy bio. Yawn. Most folks on there were excessively exhausting. hackneyed profiles, cringeworthy pictures, and messy conversation starters. After about a day, I was finished. I came across this one man just as I was about to delete the application. He was 20 years old, had a strong build, had a smart bio, and we were compatible. I felt as though I had known him my entire life as the conversation flowed effortlessly, and we struck up an instant connection. We messed around about our horrible pasts and traded program references. Furthermore, he wasn't one of those downers who was frantic to attach, so I really felt open to conversing with him. We remained up the entire evening messaging and chose to meet that end of the week. We planned to go to a Starbucks and hang out to see where it goes. I was amazingly eager to meet this person. He was adorable, savvy, amusing, compassionate, the entire bundle. I wore my #1 dark dress, did my hair, and put on some dull red lipstick since he accepted young ladies who wear red lipstick are diggers, and I needed to refute him. I went to the Starbucks, purposely somewhat late, yet I was unable to detect him. I messaged him and there was a moment answer. Pivot, it said. I took a full breath. This could presumably be whenever I'm first gathering the one who should be my perfect partner. Pivoted and looked into his earthy colored eyes that sparkled like pools of honey in daylight. He had a flawlessly etched face and a charming fragrance of cigarettes, cologne, and some synthetic I couldn't exactly put. He was wearing a fresh white shirt with the sleeves moved up to his elbows. His hair was perfect, at this point muddled, in this unusually enchanting way. I saw this fellow, and I was unimaginably drawn to him. Hello, he grinned. He had a profound voice and a compliment that I was unable to put, which I accepted for a moment that was a South African pronunciation since he had let me know he grew up there. We requested espresso and had a significant discussion, and in practically no time, 3 hours had passed. We talked about our lives, our pasts, paranoid ideas, the universe, thus a lot additional interesting issues. He wasn't simply truly appealing, however, given a staggering measure of scholarly excitement too. I believed he might be the one. He said that the date was fun and that he would love to go out with me again. Presently, I realize I wore red lipstick to demonstrate I wasn't a cultivator. However, I was truly drawn to this person, so I requested that he return to my place. He snickered and proposed we go to his place rather, since it was nearer. We took a taxi and arrived at his place, which was 10 minutes away. It wasn't precisely the way that I had envisioned it to be. It was this old, flimsy design with void plots of land surrounding it. It was separated, it could be said. Yeah, I confided in him. The inner parts of the house weren't the slightest bit like the outside. It was spotless, sufficiently bright, and all around designed. There was more grounded smell of the previously mentioned substance here. However, I didn't pay an excessive amount of regard to it. He inquired as to whether I needed a beverage, and I only requested a Coke, so he got me a glass of Coke with 3 ice shapes. After I finished my drink, we talked for a while, and before I knew it, his soft lips were against mine and his arms were around my waist. Amidst making out, felt tipsy, so I requested that he stop. Yet he didn't. I was muddled. Something was up. I attempted to get up, snatch my handbag, and leave. Yet his solid body had areas of strength for an on mine. The last thing I recalled from that episode was his alluring etched face moving toward mine. I awakened with a beginning the following morning, and I was in my bed, back home, after being doped by a Tinder date. I had no idea what had happened or how I got back into my room. Assuming that he tranquilized me, for what reason didn't he assault me or murder me? Why did I end up sleeping in my bed back at home? I messaged my companions and they let me know it was likely only a bad dream, yet I realized it wasn't. I was frightened, and the primary thing I did was uninstall Kindling. I had a go at messaging him, however. Was unable to track down his number or his subtleties on my telephone, or via virtual entertainment. I could have texted him on Tinder, but my account had just been deleted, and I couldn't get it back. Brilliant. I felt like I was going off the deep end. When I got in the shower, strange marks were all over my body. I found scars that weren't there previously and wounds in strange regions. I was terrified, and I couldn't understand what was going on. Went to work, however, some way or another. I felt unique. I felt like something was different about me. We decided to go to the mall in the evening with some friends, and as soon as I stepped through the metal detector at the entrance, it went crazy. It mysteriously started signaling uproariously hit since I wasn't conveying anything. The security workforce apologized and let me know that it was most likely the machine's shortcoming. That evening, I had an unnerving bad dream. I was on a table in this unimaginably splendid room, and there were unidentifiable animals around me. Tall, dim animals with no recognizable facial elements. The room possessed an aroma like a similar substance as my creepy kindling date. These animals brought careful hardware near my skin, and right as they were going to cut into my stomach, I awakened. One of the aforementioned scars was located exactly where I lifted my shirt. Don't know what's going on now, because I've watched way too many videos about conspiracy theories. Only one plausible explanation exists. I was snatched by outsiders, and they have embedded a test or the like within my body. My kindling date was an individual from an outsider species so high level that they can assume the actual appearance of other living things. When we were discussing conspiracy theories, he mentioned such creatures, but in reality, he was referring to himself. He claimed to be the ideal person for me to bait me into returning to his place, so his sort could involve me as a subject to perform investigates. The metal indicator went wild due to the test they have embedded within me. This alien species is monitoring me right now, but no one believes me. If you enjoyed the stories, you can subscribe to hear more from me. Thanks for tuning in today, and see you soon.